Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. This happened recently in the evening. I, 18-year-old and female, was walking with my boyfriend, 18-year-old and male, when we stopped for a bit and were making out. An older man noticed us and then stared at me very angrily, which immediately made me feel uncomfortable. Because of that, my boyfriend and I decided to leave and just started walking away. After we walked a few meters, I looked back and I saw the same man standing behind a tree with his bike on the footpath. When he realized that we had noticed him, he turned his bike and then rode away. A few minutes later, he came back riding on the same footpath and crossed us, so we thought that he had actually left. We continued walking, but then we saw him standing there once again. He kept staring directly at my face with an angry expression, and I felt extremely anxious and unsafe in that moment. After we crossed him, he didn't follow us anymore. We walked a little further and noticed that he had parked his bike and walked off somewhere else. And after that, we never saw him again. The whole situation left me shaken, and I still think about how uncomfortable and scary it felt. I'm posting this here because the whole situation left me shaken. I keep wondering what I could have done differently and how women are supposed to handle situations like this without panicking at all. Has anyone else experienced something similar? How do you deal with this kind of fear in the moment? I was a shy kid. In elementary school, I don't think that I spoke to anyone unless spoken to, and even then, I often felt so anxious about being perceived that I kept my replies short, and I spent the next few hours replaying the conversation in my head, hoping that I didn't come off as weird. I had a lot of trouble with boys too, so it was no wonder that I spent a lot of time at the guidance counselor's office. My guidance counselor was a sweet younger woman. She and my mom got along well, and I even kept in contact with her through Facebook as I got older. She was truly awesome. By the time that I got to high school, I had broken out of my shell a bit. I became a varsity competitive cheerleader. I was in all AP/honor classes and was the top rank art student and president of the art club. And I dated a complete asshole too. I truly got the complete high school experience. Now, at my high school, there was an option to take tech classes at an applied learning center. They offered a ton of courses like cosmetology, CNA, automotive, and many more. And it was truly a great tool for those not planning on college or who just wanted some technical skills before graduating high school. I wasn't able to take any courses at the tech school, but my boyfriend did. He took some sort of police course, and it happened to be taught by my elementary school guidance counselor's husband. Now, this was a very large man. I mean, the most ripped man that I have ever seen. His arms were the size of my head, and that's not an exaggeration. Apparently, he was an arm wrestling champion at one time. I wish I was joking, but I am not. Over the few semesters my boyfriend had in his class, the two became pretty close. I guess he became some sort of a mentor to him, and since I knew his wife, we even ended up having dinner at his house. Looking back now, I have no idea why two teachers thought that it was a good idea to invite two high school students to their house, but they did. They had two young daughters, probably around 5 and 7. They were also in competitive cheer, so I spent most of the evening talking to them. Dinner was uneventful, and I never thought twice about it, as odd as it was. Afterwards, my boyfriend's teacher followed me on Instagram. He would like and comment on my pictures and occasionally message me. It was never about anything weird, and since he was my boyfriend's mentor and past guidance counselor's husband, I literally never thought twice about it. I remember him messaging me once to ask if I would come over sometime to give his daughter's tumbling lessons, and I literally thought, wow, what a great idea. I was stupid. Now, fast forward a year or so, I finally realized that my boyfriend was a jerk and I dumped him. I would see his teacher at my cheer competitions and he would still occasionally message me, but I didn't think that that was weird since his daughters were into it too. I was sitting in AP Stat one day, goofing off in the back row with a friend of mine, when I heard my name called over the intercom. They wanted me to report to the principal's office. And almost simultaneously, my stepdad started texting me, asking me weird questions about pictures that I did not understand. All of my anxiety came rushing back at once. I had never been to the principal's office before, and as I stood up to leave class, everyone stared at me. I walked into the office, and I was surprised to see my mom standing there crying, a detective standing next to her, and a big yellow folder sitting on the desk in front of them. The folder was full of pictures of me, and they were found on my ex-boyfriend teacher's phone. The folder was incredibly thick. He had been stalking me and I had no idea. I never opened the folder because I didn't want to know. After I left the office that day, I never heard another word about it except that he was fired. It almost feels like a fever dream, but it happened, and I'm just glad that I never went to his house to give his daughters tumbling lessons. So, to my ex-boyfriend's teacher and guidance counselor's husband, let's not ever meet again. My town has had an increase in crime in the past decade. The larger businesses shut down, and it left people either fleeing the town or large amounts of unemployed people. Unfortunately, there weren't enough social services to protect us. It started out as mostly non-violent crimes, break-ins, stolen cars, and a lot of shoplifting. And gradually, it turned into muggings, violent home invasions, kidnappings, gang and drug-related crime too. The police were overwhelmed with the amount, and some were allegedly corrupt. You could see the change on the bars of the windows and increased security on the houses. People didn't stay outside like they used to, and kids would rush home, and no one willingly walked the street at night. It was just too dangerous. It was never a wealthy town, but this was crazy. My story isn't about this directly. However, you need the background story to understand where I'm coming from and why this was normalized. So, there was a talk about finding new ways to protect us. The people decided to become the night watch to take a stand. They would patrol the streets at night, protect the peace, and keep the gangsters at bay. Honestly, I never felt safer with them out there. Some were too old to do anything, and the others? They weren't the sort of people you want walking around with weapons, considering that some were known to be involved in the crime themselves. They would routinely knock on the door to check to see if everyone was all right inside. Most, I believe, had good intentions, but some Not so much. And I'll call this one Ernie. He knocked on the door and asked if my family was okay, and I said yes, and I thanked him and told him good night. But he came around every single damn night to ask us. It was annoying, but I just tolerated it. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed someone peeking through the curtains. I screamed, and the face suddenly moved away. For once, I was actually grateful that the watch group was nearby, and I told them what happened. And they looked around, but the creep had escaped. Proudly, they boasted about having driven them off. The next week, there were no issues. But every night, I made sure to close the curtains and the blinds to ensure that no one could see inside. But of course, the watch group knocked on the door to check in, and I noticed Ernie was there. One time, Ernie was hinting to wanting to come inside to double check things if it was safe, and to also come in for a drink. I told him that my kids and I were going to see their father tomorrow, and I needed to be awake early for the long drive. Just a bit of context, my ex and I are divorced, and I have 3 girls, all under 10. It was amicable. We were just different people and couldn't make it work, but he was still a friend. So yeah, going back to the story, I told Ernie no, and he left without saying anything, and I thought that that was it. But some time later, I heard a knocking at the window. And then, someone was trying to open it, but it wouldn't open. Then, I heard footsteps when they moved to another window to try it. My landlord hadn't really invested in bars on the windows, so I used a sturdy wooden stick in them to prevent them from being slid open, and thank God it worked. But I couldn't sleep a wink at all. The next morning, I checked the windows, and the paint had been scraped off where they must have used the tool. Drinking a double espresso to fuel me, I made the long drive to my ex's. We sat on the porch and I looked exhausted. So he offered to drive me back. I told him that I was okay. We chatted about this and that before the talk about my town came up. It was my hometown, so I have a connection to that place. But he told me that if I wanted to move to be closer and to be safer, he would help me out with finances. I thanked him. I told him that I would think about it, but seriously, I was considering it. I wanted the girls to grow up somewhere safe where they could go out and play. After we spent some time with our kids, we decided to head home since it was getting late. We made the drive back, and as I was about to park on my driveway, I saw Ernie was there. He was sitting on my porch with his gun. It was around 9 p.m., and none of the other watch group was there with him, and something in my gut told me to be cautious. My parents always taught me to listen to my gut instinct and not bother about being polite if necessary. I rolled down my window, waved hello, and then I pretended to have left my phone at my ex's place. I told him that I needed to go because I needed it. He looked angry, and he told me not to worry about it and that I can get it tomorrow since it's late. I just knew something was wrong, especially the way that he was looking at me. I whispered to the kids to stay inside the car. Then I rolled the window back up, drove around the corner at the nosy old lady's place, and I parked there. I knocked on her door. She let me in, and I told her what happened. She told me to keep this between us and, well, maybe the internet too, that Ernie was being kicked out of their group. He had been seen looking at women and young girls changing their clothing or using the restroom. My eyes widened, remembering those times when I heard someone by the window and that time when someone was trying to pry it open. She said that he also seems to have some sort of fixation on me. That scared the hell out of me, not just for myself but for my kids too. I then thanked her for her time, called my ex up, and asked if we could stay for the night. He let us and I drove back the long way, I briefly told him what happened before I crashed on the bed. Long story short, Ernie was charged since there were multiple reports about him, and the guard or the watch group, whatever the hell it was disbanded for good. I don't know the situation there now because I ended up moving to my ex's boring suburb, but the kids are happy that we're closer to their dad and they're more free and safer. You never realize how much privilege you have when it is safe for you to go to the park and let your kids play. I was 19 when this happened, working closing shifts at a Sam's Club in North Carolina. It was only about a 7-minute drive from my mom's house, and I genuinely loved my coworkers. We were close, and I trusted them to have my back. This happened right after a big holiday sales event, the kind where the store is packed and everything is chaos. I was in the clothing section late at night, folding piles of clothes left behind on the tables, when I noticed a man watching me out of the corner of my eye. I assumed that he needed help, so I asked, "Is there anything that I can help you find?" He answered in a nervous, high-pitched voice, asking for a different size. I helped him, but afterward he started complimenting me, telling me that I was pretty and asking if I was Hispanic. I was exhausted, and I didn't think much of it. I even assumed that he might be harmless, and also thought that he might have liked the opposite sex. As the store was closing, he then asked for my Snapchat. I gave it to him. I was never planning on actually having conversations with him. And even now, I cringe thinking about why a 19-year-old would give her Snapchat to a man who looked to be in his 40s. After we closed and then cleared the store, I met up with my closest coworker, and I'll call her Bestie. I casually mentioned the guy, and I told her his name is Kevin. Her face dropped. She asked to see his Snapchat, and the moment that I pull it up, she went quiet and called over a manager that we trusted. Suddenly, I was being asked questions, what he looked like, what he said, whether he was alone or not, and then they told me who he really was. He was a former employee who had been fired after multiple incidents. He had stalked the girl who worked there, showed up on his off days just to bother her, and used the posted schedules in the break room to track when she worked. But things escalated badly enough that he was eventually terminated. When I was working there, we used the app for our schedule, and he was the reason why they changed it from paper to personal apps now. And now, apparently, I was next. That night, my manager and Bestie walked me to my car. While we were standing there, I got a Snapchat message from him. I told them immediately. The message asked if I lived nearby and if I wanted to hang out. Bestie told me exactly what to say, that I didn't live alone and I had roommates nearby. When he asked if he could come over, I said no. I blocked him as soon as I got home. Out of curiosity, I looked him up on Facebook. He had a wife, kids, a family. I considered warning her, but I was told that the woman before me had tried and the wife didn't believe her. The next day at work, Bestie called me over the walkie-talkie and told me to go to the back of the store. She said, "Kevin is here." And he was asking for me by name. This became routine. Almost every shift, he would come in asking where I was, and I would hide in the break room, the back, or wherever I could. Eventually, most of my coworkers knew what was happening and helped without question. One day, Bestie didn't see him come into the store, and by the time that I spotted him, I saw Bestie waving me down. She warned me over the walkie, and I ran into the jewelry department where an older coworker, we can call her Mrs. Joy, was working, and I barely had time to whisper, "Kevin." She understood immediately. He walked up and asked if a little Hispanic girl from clothing was working that day. Mrs. Joy told him no. He lingered, circling the counter and pretending to look at jewelry, and I crouched behind the counter, pretending to search for something while the customer stood nearby. Eventually, he left, and I stayed hidden over for an hour just to be sure. What scared me most, though, was outside of work. Some nights after closing, we would see a minivan idling in the parking lot with its lights off. It wouldn't leave until I walked to my car. I never proved that it was him, but the timing was always wrong. And after 5 months, he slowly stopped appearing at the store. No more questions, no more hiding, no more watching over my shoulder. I never filed a restraining order. I was young, overwhelmed, and I was just trying to survive everything else in my life at that time. But to Kevin, who turned my workplace into a hiding place and made my coworkers protect me for months, if you are reading this, I hope you get some help. And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.